Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about CMAT 2025 and what all important topics to ensure that you get a great score. Now before we start, let's just set some ground rules over here. The ground rules are this. We're going to go through the entire syllabus subject wise, and in that syllabus itself, I will point out what matters the most and what matters less. Now obviously, needless to say that it would be preferable if you were to finish the entire syllabus. But if anyone wants to just revise the core ideas, especially if you're done with the entire syllabus, that what matters the most. And for all those people who are looking for a shortcut in the last 9, 10 days of what all to do in a rush, what all to ensure a decent score in your CMAT 2025. Now, that is basically what we are going to be discussing. I'm going to categorize the different topics in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 and so on. Tier 1 being the most important one, tier 2 being slightly less important and so on. Now, it's obviously up to you guys. If you think that you're already done with a particular part, that you could never go wrong, completely up to you if you don't want to go through it all over again. But we do recommend that these are topics that you should be extremely familiar with. Now, to quickly get started, we are going to start off with quantitative techniques and data interpretation. Needless to say, there are a lot of good parts. Each section contains 20 questions, and obviously there is a very hefty weightage to some particular topics even over here. This is the entire portion that we have right over here, and out of these, percentage right off the bat is an extremely important topic, considering that percentage is all extremely relevant to almost every single aspect of arithmetic. Apart from percentage, we have profit and loss. Now keep in mind, ratio and proportion I would put in the second category. Percentage, profit and loss I would put in the first category. Once again, time and work and time spent distance would be there in the first category itself. Number system is another one in there in the first category all over again. Apart from that, all of these ratio, proportion, averages, simple interest, compound interest, all of these fall under the second category. So out of these, we have time and work, time spent distance, percentage, profit and loss, and number system in the first category of this particular segment. Next, we come to algebra. In algebra, linear equations will fall under the first category, whereas quadratic equations would fall under the second category. That means if you have to choose only one of these two things to do from, you should ideally speaking go for linear equations. That would be an absolute for us. Geometry overall, the entire thing along with mensuration is extremely important and would be rated number 1 in the entire segment. This is not something that you should mess around with. Apart from this, any kind of probability questions should also be on your list. All sorts of probabilities and everything. Now, finally, when we come to data interpretation, in this one, bar graphs and line graphs are the ones which take the cake for us, and these are extremely important for you to be able to go through this particular exam. This is basically our list for quantitative techniques and data interpretation, the most important topics that you should absolutely not miss out on. Now, coming on to logical reasoning. When it comes to logical reasoning, first thing that we're going to discuss is puzzles. Now, I'm going to categorize puzzles into two different segments. The first one belongs in a group where you have an entire group of questions. The other one refers to individual questions. The group questions fall in the first category, whereas the independent and the individual questions fall in the second category, as you can see from over here. Apart from that, in our first segment itself, we have statement, some basic CR. Apart from all of this, which you should absolutely be aware of, which is assumptions, conclusions, and finally, course of action. These are all questions that we would categorize under category 1. This is extremely important. And moving on, in the second category, we would also put in any kind of a missing term when we come to number series. And apart from the number series itself, when it comes to when it comes to the CR questions, if out of these three you also want to make a certain kind of choice, you can put assumptions in the second category instead of the first one. But conclusion and course of action, we extremely heavily suggest that you should absolutely make sure that this is not something you miss out on. Apart from that, silogs and Venn diagrams would also be important, and you should not skip out on any of these. Now, let's come to language comprehension. In language comprehension, obviously, we are 100% certain that there are going to be questions from each of these segments. This is not what this video is about. This video is about if you have to absolutely choose where should you categorize what. Obviously, no doubts about it, reading comprehension has to be your first priority, considering that a very hefty weightage of this entire section comes under reading comprehension. On the second place, you would have any kind of grammar, vocabulary, parables, everything else would fall under your second category if you have to categorize things by the level of importance. Finally, moving on to general awareness. General awareness is a bit of a tricky section. You have current affairs, business and economy, science and technology, sports, history, geography, politics, culture. These are obviously some of them. Now, in current affairs, you obviously have international and national current affairs at the same time. However, current affairs doesn't hold the most amount of weightage, generally speaking, if you look at their past year papers. So, even though this is important, we do recommend you being selective with the kind of information you have to remember at the last moment. But there is one topic out of all these which does take the cake for us, which holds the biggest piece of the pie, and that is business and economy. This is the most important segment, considering that this is so closely related to the course that you're actually preparing for. It's extremely related to it, and making this the highest priority in this entire segment. This is not something that you can do without. On the other hand, you also have your history and general sciences. General sciences and history would fall under category 2 for us, and these are things that you should absolutely not give up on. Apart from that, any kind of famous personality, Indian politics and that too Indian in particular, these would fall under the third category. Apart from that, any kind of public figures, including any kind of politicians, would also fall under a similar third panel. Apart from that, inventions, which is what has been invented by what person, would also fall under a third category, and these are things which you should once again not rely on too much. Apart from that, just a quick comment, the sports, as we have seen in the past few is not given a lot of importance. However, some basic things, all the superlatives, should ideally be things that you should be aware of while entering this exam room. Now, with that in mind, let's quickly come to the final section. This is a bit of a tricky one. Innovation and entrepreneurship. So this was originally inculcated in the 2021 paper as an optional section. However, come 2022, they have made it an absolutely necessary section. You can't skip this out. This again, like all the other section, contains 20 questions, and you can't. This is not an optional thing anymore. You have to attempt it if you want a decent chance at the exam and the results. In these particular things, all the theoretical parts we recommend should be your first section, first category. Now, everything else, it's a little difficult to choose from all of these. However, considering recent times, women and entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial culture, these also form a very important part of this segment. But overall, when it comes to this section, we do recommend going through the entire theory without skipping too much. This should not be too difficult, considering that this is not rocket science. This is something that you have already thought of. You have all the gray matter to process this sort of information, especially considering the fact that this is absolutely the field that you're eyeing for. Now, this should not come as a surprise, but they do expect you to be decently good at this, making sure that this segment is there in the paper, and you do need to take it seriously. I would not recommend for you to just skip it, take it lightly. This is an important section, and this could also be a very scoring section for you guys. And for any of you who did have commerce or entrepreneurship as their subjects in school, you would be thrilled to actually go through this section, because a lot of this stuff is something that you have already prepared for in the past. As for all the non-commerce people, again, keep in mind, this is not a difficult section. This is the section that pertains to the field you are eyeing. As a result, Make sure you do not skip out on this. Do not think that, oh, I've never done this, I can't do this. You absolutely can. Have some faith in yourself. And with that, I'm going to end this video. Please make sure that all the important topics that we've discussed, you get through all those topics. You have some amount of time left. You can absolutely do it. I know that you must be so tired from all the different exams that have appeared for so far, but this is absolutely something you can do. I believe in you and you should believe in yourself as well. Thank you.